He called himself the Beast, wrote a book delivered by a mysterious voice, partied with poets and pranksters, and haunted rock stars for a century. Aleister Crowley rewired how the West imagines magic, and pop culture never stopped listening. Born as Edward Alexander Crowley on the 12th of October 1975, Aleister Crowley was born to a wealthy family in Royal Leamington Spa, England. He grew up in a Christian home and with a father who was an engineer and had a share in a lucrative family brewing business. His father spent his time as a traveling preacher and reading them a chapter from the Bible after breakfast every day. Aleister Crowley always maintained an admiration for his father, describing him as his hero and his friend. When Aleister Crowley was 11 years old, his father died of tongue cancer, and this was a turning point in his life. He inherited a third of his father's wealth, began misbehaving at school, and was harshly punished by Reverend Henry Darcy Champney, who ran the Ebor Preparatory School in Cambridge that Aleister Crowley attended. Crowley became increasingly skeptical of Christianity, pointing out biblical inconsistencies to his religious teachers, and went against the Christian morality of his upbringing by smoking, masturbating, and having sex with prostitutes from whom he contracted gonorrhea. At the turn of the century in 1899, Crowley joined and was initiated into the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, a secret society that attracted London's intellectuals with its ritual, symbolism, and mystical exercises. But Crowley's appetite for extremes such as sex, drugs, and theatrical rituals soon set him apart. In 1900, Crowley traveled to Mexico and started a relationship with a local woman. He continued experimenting with ceremonial magic and later said that he had been initiated into Freemasonry while there. Crowley then decided to tour India, devoting himself to the Hindu practice of Raja Yoga, by which means he believed he had achieved the spiritual state of dhyana. During this time, Crowley was also writing poetry and mountaineering. Crowley arrived in Paris in November 1902, and he socialized with his friend, the painter Gerald Kelly. Crowley married Gerald Kelly's sister, Rose Edith Kelly, in a marriage of convenience to prevent her from entering an arranged marriage. The marriage between Aleister Crowley and Rose Kelly appalled the Kelly family and damaged Crowley's friendship with Gerald. Heading on a honeymoon to Paris, Cairo, and then Ceylon, Crowley fell in love with Rose and worked to prove his affections. In February 1904, Crowley and Rose arrived in Cairo. Pretending to be a prince and princess, they rented an apartment in which Crowley set up a temple room and began invoking ancient Egyptian deities while studying Islamic mysticism and Arabic. Later on, Crowley said that his wife, Rose, became hysterical and informed him, "They are waiting for you." She explained that they were the god Horus. She led him to a nearby museum where she showed him a 7th century BCE mortuary stele known as the Stele of Ankhefen-Khonsu. This stele's number was 666, which is the number of the beast in Christian belief. According to Crowley's later statements, he heard a disembodied voice identifying itself as that of Aiwass, the messenger of Horus. Crowley said that he wrote down everything the voice told him over the course of 3 days and titled it The Book of the Law. The book proclaimed that humanity was entering a new aeon and that Crowley would serve as its prophet. It stated that a supreme moral law was to be introduced in this aeon, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law," and that people should learn to live in tune with their will. This book and the philosophy that it embraced became the cornerstone of Crowley's religion, Thelema. Over the course of the next couple of years, Crowley advanced ritual into the forbidden, sexual magic, intricate ceremonies, and public challenges. Newspapers labeled him the most wicked man on the planet. He used shock as a mechanism, narcotics, sensual ceremonies, and a dramatic identity that enraged respectable society and turned him into a focal point for both outrage and intrigue. Crowley pursued extremes. He experimented with cocaine and opiates. He participated in a disastrous attempt at climbing the second highest mountain in the world, in which an avalanche buried several men. Eyewitnesses heard frantic cries for help. One person raced out to search. Crowley, according to multiple accounts, stayed in his sleeping bag. Crowley later wrote that he felt no sympathy for such accidents, a remark that haunted his reputation. In 1920, Crowley founded the Abbey of Thelema in Italy, which was designed as a practical school for his new religion, Thelema, based on the dictum, "Do what thou wilt." Life at the Abbey was intentionally transgressive and ritualized, mixing ceremonial magic, dancing, writing, and communal study. According to Martin Booth, who wrote a biography about Crowley, Crowley offered a libertine education for the children, allowing them to play all day and witness acts of sex magic. Wild dogs and cats wandered throughout the building. Under mounting pressure, the Italian authorities closed the Abbey that year amid accusations of debauchery and scandal, forcing Crowley and many followers to leave. In later years, Crowley continued to write poems and books that were considered blasphemous by critics. He moved around Europe, living in France and England at various times, and continued to perform magical workings. His finances worsened, and his already fragile health and substance dependencies deepened. He died in England in 1947. In the decades after his death, Crowley's image was rediscovered and mythologized by musicians, artists, and occultists, cementing a controversial but enduring cultural legacy. Did Crowley create an occult religion, or did he invent a vocabulary for rebellion that the rest of culture keeps translating into new forms? If you like this deep dive, hit like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.